And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And, I've been thinking about things lately that I do that are a little bit, I don't know, weird. Maybe not quite jiving with the rest of society, but just works for me. Okay? And I'm not talking about anything really big or bizarre, potentially. Just some of those little things. Like, at home, I use my mouse left-handed. I used to use it left-handed at work too, but I was developing a little bit of an issue with my back and shoulder, sort of RSI type. So I'm using my mouse right-handed at work and left-handed at home. And that in and of itself is just sort of bizarre. Now, I am kind of ambidextrous. I was born left-handed. I used to do everything left-handed but right. Okay. And writing was great. I've always, as far as I can recall, I've always written right-handed. Okay. I did everything else left-handed except right until I broke a finger in second grade. I smashed my finger in the door, and that hurts, by the way. Don't do that. But yes, and it broke at the end of my the middle finger on my left hand. Yeah, this one right here. So, I went to the hospital, had a splint on it for 6 weeks. I couldn't use it. I mean, my hand was fine, but I couldn't, because I had this big honking splint on my finger. I couldn't write, or I couldn't color. I couldn't use my left hand for any of the stuff I normally did. So I used my right hand because I still had stuff I had to do in school, right? I was in second grade. I was like, which is what, 8? 7 or 8, something like that. So I still had coloring assignments I had to do. I still had to use scissors, right, all that stuff. So I just started doing all of that with my right hand, and I never really went back. I still use scissors left-handed. I still eat left-handed. But yeah, it was weird. So fast forward a few years, and we get our first computer with a mouse. And my dad, who is left-handed, when he set up the computer, he put the mouse on the left-hand side. And that's just how I learned to use a mouse. Now, obviously, I've been in other jobs. I had school with right-handed mice, no big deal. I didn't bother me. I pick one hand, pick the other. It just did not matter. Okay. But my home setup is a little bit specific to me, okay? Which I think a lot of our home setups are. Now, I'm sitting in a somewhat small space, so it's harder to shift things around. But the way we use a mouse and keyboard is not great from an ergonomics perspective. And I mean we in the global we, right? The design of the keyboard, if you take your standard 101, 104 key keyboard, whatever, and you've got the section of the keyboard that is, your alphabet, right? When you cut down to like a 60% keyboard or something like that, this is what you're talking about. Which, if you're typing, you want right in front of you for ergonomics related reasons. If it's off to the side, you end up twisting while typing, and it's bad for your back. It's just not good for your body. Okay, and then you've got the 10 key and a handful of other stuff, right? That numpad on the right hand side, which is wonderful for your right hand. The reality is, how often do you spend time using that keypad? Most of us never, which is why, or not much anyway, which is why a lot of people go for an 80% or a 70% keyboard that cuts out some of that. Okay. The problem with having a full-size keyboard and then using a mouse right-handed is your mouse ends up way out in the hinterlands in some ways. You're having to reach way over to use it, or sliding your keyboard over so that the again, that typing portion of it is shifted out of the way, and it just doesn't work well. Now, if you do that shift and you put the mouse on the right-hand side, you can actually have something relatively ergonomic for games, right? Because most games, including Minecraft, default to using WASD for movement, right? And if you shift your keyboard over so that that's convenient for your left hand, your mouse actually sits fairly comfortable for your right. Okay, that's not too bad. At home, I do the opposite. Because I'm flying left-handed, I use the keypad for movement, the numpad. I use 8456 for movement, and it works great. And it allows me to not have to shift my keyboard and stuff around for when I'm then sitting down to type, like when I type my supporter blog at musicfreegaming.com. I don't have to shift things around. I don't have to do any of that stuff. I can just, my keyboard is right where it is. It's one of those little things. It's nothing particularly crazy, just a little weird. But it works for me, and I go with it. Another thing I've got going on is I'm trying to keep my life organized a little bit. I'm failing at this in some ways, but I'm trying, okay? It's one of those things like no plan survives contact with the enemy, and I'm running into that on occasion with my organization system. Sometimes it's easy to skip the organization and get right to the crisis. I'm trying to avoid that, but I'm having issues with that from time to time. But I still need to keep track of, hey, my agenda, right? What do I have going on? What do I need to do? What tasks do I have going on? What projects am I working on? Right, I have it. At home, I've got a bunch of stuff where I need to, like, what for this podcast, right? I've got a whole checklist for the podcast, right? I need to record it. And then after I record the podcast, I need to edit it. I need to create the thumbnail. I need to upload it to the video, right, to YouTube and Rumble, and the audio goes to Acast and up to musicfreegaming.com, right? Oh, I need to drop a social post somewhere, those types of things, right? That's lovely. But I don't have just this podcast. Like, after I record the podcast, I'm going to be streaming, all right? And then I have to edit the video for Tinkerworld, right? Which is what I was doing for the videos, or for my streams this week, right? Because that's what I do. I stream, and I use the streams as source for long-form video on YouTube. Okay, cool. But that has a whole checklist as well. Most of it's the same. Okay, I've got to record the video. I've got to edit it. I've got to edit the clips for, which will go up on the various creator media sites like TikTok, Instagram, things like that. Right, all of this stuff. And so and I need to keep track of it. I need to be sure it gets done, right? So all of this gets added there. And then, of course, at work, I have a whole other checklist I need to worry about, right? So there are a lot of ways to do that, right? And I looked at a number of sites. I've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but I looked at a number of different sites like Trello. Recently, I was looking at Monday.com for potential work-related reasons. Actually, I looked at a bunch of things for work. I looked at a bunch of things for home too, and realized that none of these really fit well for how I like to do things. So what I ended up choosing was a program called Emacs. It's Emacs. And Emacs is, at its heart, a text editor. It has been around for decades, okay? But Emacs is one of those tools that is infinitely expandable, right? It's not just that it has a plug-in type architecture. It's that the entire thing is written in Lisp and encourages you or others to write libraries in Lisp that expand out the editor, right? Expand out the application. In some ways, I heard somebody once describe Emacs as being an operating system, just like Windows almost. It's like, yeah, there are applications written for Emacs. And so, yeah, and yes, it's plain text. It's a lot of it works through a markup language. Officially, it's org mode, but it looks a little bit like Markdown. If you've ever used Markdown to update text, a lot of sites use this for formatting. So you can enter plain text and get something fancy, right? I think Tumblr does, Reddit does, right? Something like that. Or if you've ever edited a wiki, some of them use Markdown, some use the wiki text that was developed by from MediaWiki, right? Org mode is very similar. Okay, same idea, but it gives me checkboxes. It gives me to do headings that then I can schedule and give deadlines and put everything into my agenda. And I've got a script to download my calendar from Google, and it throws all of that into the agenda so I can see, oh, I have these meetings and I'm going to be working on these things today. It's great. 100% weird. Okay. This is not something I would recommend for the normal person, partly because it is a little tech heavy. Emacs in general kind of is. But it does 90% of what I need it to do, and I use Emacs all the time. At work, I use it constantly because this is what I do all of my text editing and everything in. And I do a lot of editing of text files at work, right? Heck, I even tried using it as a web browser for a while, and it works fine. It just doesn't have JavaScript, which causes a number of issues for a lot of websites. So I still end up having to go back to something like Vivaldi or Firefox or something for the whole web experience, right? But it works for me. Heck, I use the window manager I use at work. I run Linux at work. At home, I run Windows just because there's so much I do that is dependent on Windows, right? I've got, all of my content creation stuff is Windows specific, or a lot of it is. OBS is not. That's available for Linux, but the driver for my capture card is only available for Windows, right? The Elgato capture card. I've got a Stream Deck, that's a Windows thing. I've got a Go XLR, that's a Windows thing, right? So, yeah. But at work, I run Linux, and rather than using a window manager or a desktop environment that looks like Windows or Mac or something like that, I use one called i3, which is a tiling window manager. And the basic gist of it is it has almost nothing. All it does is show windows, but its goal in life is to stack and organize those windows. Because I'm one of those weird people. I don't like clicking down at my status bar, right? If you're using Windows, for example, you look down, right? You've got the status bar at the bottom where you've got the list of open windows. I don't like doing with that. If I've got something open, I kind of like to see it open or not at all. Okay. But I also often have things where I need to see them side by side, and Windows has gotten a lot better. If you hover over the maximize button, right, you get those three buttons in the top, the minimize, window, and X buttons. Well, a lot of times if you hover over that, it gives you an option to, I want to split my screen in a couple of different ways. Okay. It's a little clunky, but it works. i3 is just built around the idea that you never want to see your desktop background. You just want to see your applications. And it makes it easy to do that. It tabs windows in a whole section, right? So if I have a bunch of browser windows open, each with their own set of tabs, I could have them stacked in tabs. So it makes it easier to shift between tasks in some ways, right? So I've got that. I can have a window open below that. Right? I can just do a bunch of different things. It's really nice, and it works for me. Again, not something that I would recommend for anybody else. Not that I say don't do it. It's fine. It's great. It works great for me and the way I like to do things. Because I'm a tinkerer, okay, in a lot of ways. I like to just sort of fiddle with things until it works exactly the way I want it to work for me. Okay? And part of that is just fun. And part of it is I'm trying to gain some efficiencies in my life or in my workflow, something like that. But it's you ever have the thing that just annoys you? Right? It doesn't matter what it is, just some little annoyance, and you find a way to work around it so it's no longer there. Oh, maybe that annoying thing is still there. You just never run into it anymore. Right? It's that sort of mentality. It doesn't really matter if it's strange or anything, if it works for you. Right? All of the stuff I do is specific to me. I don't expect you to use it. I don't expect my wife to use it. I don't expect anybody else to use it but me. And that's okay, right? It's not like I'm sitting down at a shared console, like in Star Trek, right? I'm sitting down at the helm and doing things, and I may have to suddenly leave my seat because the ship exploded. Now somebody else has to sit down and use that same console. No, it's just do the thing, okay? Because, again, I'm the one using it. I think that's sort of the message I wanted to share, because I like that I can customize things for myself, right? But more importantly, I don't want other people to limit what works for me. Okay, yeah, I mean, obviously there are some limits. I don't get to rob a bank, so I have money to go do things, right? But if I want to change my browser layout or change my editor to something that just works a little bit better for me, right? Why not? Right? It's why some people like to use dark mode versus light mode. Right? Now, I like dark mode. I like having things a little darker. It's nicer on my eyes. But someone wants to use light mode, that's their thing, and who cares? Right? I don't have to let their limits or their decisions limit what I do for me. Right? The other thing, maybe it's more practical, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's just a sign that clothes are not important to me. But I have a pretty set style for clothing, okay? If I am leaving the house and I'm not going to church, because when I go to church, I'm typically wearing a suit, okay? But in my regular life, if I'm leaving the house, I am wearing cargo pants and a t-shirt, hiking boots, and then I'll usually pull a button-down shirt over all of that, right? Left unbuttoned, with the sleeves rolled up to my elbow. Okay? Very much like my Minecraft skin, actually. And I wear a ball cap and sunglasses if conditions warrant them. This is me. Okay? If I am leaving the house, this is what I'm wearing. Okay? Obviously, there'll be different shirts. A lot of my shirts are things swag I've gotten at conferences and things like that, or shirts I've gotten from work, things like that, But this is me. This is just what I do. Why? Because it's comfortable, for one. And part of it is I grew up like a lot of kids in the United States, and a lot of the world, actually. I grew up wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Okay, that was pretty much my I was gonna say my uniform. No, it's just kind of what my wardrobe was. It was just jeans and a t-shirt. And yeah, I wore shorts too as I was growing up. as I've gotten older, I've stopped wearing the shorts out of the house, unless I'm doing yard work or something like that, right? Partly because I don't want to blind people as the sun glares off my calves, right? But no, it's just this is what I like. I carry a pocket knife, right? I have a pocket knife in a belt pouch because I like having a pocket knife available, and I don't like having things in my pockets. So I carry a pocket knife. In fact, I have it on me right now. I have a Swiss Champ that I carry around with me because it's nice to have the tools available when I need them, right? If I needed a screwdriver yesterday, so it was nice to have it, right? And it didn't necessarily have to be a screwdriver, I guess, but I went to dinner with my daughter. Okay, it's just us home. We went out to dinner last night, and so you know what? We're out. Let's just go wander Walmart, just for the heck of it. But as I'm pulling up or as we're leaving the restaurant, there's a thing that pops up in the car, says the battery in the remote was dying, right? The key fob. I said, okay, great. Fine. How do I open this? Turns out the way you open it is with a screwdriver or something to pop the clamshell apart. Okay, cool. I'm glad I had a screwdriver on me to do that. Right? And at work, I often need a knife or a pair of scissors or something like that. So I carry a pocket knife. And yes, I carry a big flippin' pocket knife. I probably don't need to carry the Swiss Champ. I could carry a smaller knife, probably. But it works for me. Right? And I said, there are times I vary. At one point, I was carrying at least 3 different knives. Why? I'm not entirely sure. No, I know why, because it was very specific. One, I had my Swiss Champ, because I've carried a Swiss Champ since high school. Heck, I carried a Swiss Champ in high school, right? Back before the world went insane and public schools became prisons, I carried a pocket knife on my belt all through high school. You know, it was fun. Fine. When I needed a knife to cut something, I had a knife to cut something. It was great. You know, I don't know if that was my Boy Scouts or just the fact that I grew up with a prepper. I don't know, but I like having a pocket knife. But I also had a Leatherman. I don't know if you remember Leathermans. They were all the rage for a long time. It's a multi-tool. It fits in just like the same space as a pocket knife, but they would also expand out, so you had a pair of like pliers and a wrench. Well, I occasionally needed that at work, so I carried that too. And I also had a thumb assist spring open knife because it was cool. I was gonna say, I wish I had some real reasons for that. No, it was just cool. Okay. So I carried all of these. It's the time I realized maybe I've gone a little bit too far was when I was at work and we had a bunch of packages, and it's basically turned into an impromptu opening party. And I was like, oh, who's got a knife? And I had a knife for everybody at the table. That's when I realized I maybe need to cut back a little bit. And I do. I'm back to just my pocket knife. Sometimes I'll add a flashlight to my kit. Why? Because I like to have a flashlight. Right? There have been a few times power's gone out at work, and it's been nice to have a light. Or if I'm behind the racks, sometimes it's nice to be able to shine a light and see what's going on. Okay, because overhead lights don't always get inside the racks well enough to be able to see things. So, you know, yeah, is it weird for somebody to be carrying or weird perhaps is the wrong word. Is it unusual for somebody to be carrying a flashlight and a pocket knife on their belt? Yeah, it's not something you see every day, but it works for me, right? And I don't particularly care if anyone else cares, right? So, yeah, and that's the thing. Now, again, I'm not going to try to dictate fashion to you. Thou shalt carry a pocket knife or anything weird like that. No. What I am going to say is, if you have something you need with you, and or you just happen to like something, it's okay. You know, you can go with it. Like, sunglasses are another one. I like wraparound sunglasses. Okay. And this is something that sort of grew up with me over the years. Is I like wearing sunglasses when it's outside. I don't like the brightness of the nasty yellow face. No, the sun's bright, and I just don't like that brightness. Okay, no big deal. And I got introduced to the joys of polarized lenses when I was in junior high. It's like, oh, this is even better because glare sucks, right? And I had a number of glasses over the years. My first sunglasses were shaped basically like glasses, but had my first serious sunglasses, not like the generic. Here's a $5 pair of kids sunglasses that have Spider-Man on the side or something. No, but they were regular sunglasses, but they had a plastic shield that went on the side of the sunglasses, like they attached on the glasses stem. And the idea was that it stopped the sun from shining in the side in that gap between the glasses and your face. And that was great. Not perfect, but nice. I had some other sunglasses later that basically had tinted lenses that covered that area, okay? Which was even better. They looked a little, they looked cheesy. Let's just go with that. But I really liked that. So now I liked that I didn't have, like if I turned and looked one way or another, I didn't have sunlight shining in my eyes behind my sunglasses. So I wear wraparound sunglasses. Somebody asked, "Do you wear them because it makes you look tough?" No, I just don't like the sun shining in my eyes behind my sunglasses, right? And trust me, it's going to take a lot more than sunglasses to make me look tough, all right? But behold, the middle-aged fat man, absolute, the epitome of toughness. No. Okay. But these are things that just over time I've developed these little quirks in my personality and my lifestyle. It's like, yes, this is just how I live, and I'm not particularly concerned if you care. And I think that's a good attitude to have. Yeah. Now, obviously, there are probably limits to some of this somewhere, right? My brother-in-law, if he can get away with it, he won't wear shoes anywhere. Yeah, that doesn't always work everywhere, okay? Most places are okay, but, there are some places that really don't, they really don't like it if somebody walks in without shoes. Okay, so, I understand his desire to do things the way he likes to do them. I disagree with that particular case, but that's not really a big deal. So it's just, you kind of do what works for you and accept that sometimes there are limits, right? No, I can't wear my pocket knife. Like, been a few times, like I've had jury duty. I can't wear my pocket knife into the courthouse. It's stupid, but fine. There are those types of things. It's like, yeah, sure, there are a few limits I have to accept. But my general life, like, you know what? I can work things that work best for me, and as long as I'm not interfering with the rights of somebody else, who cares? And I like it. So let me know is there something in your life that's like, yep, I know this is weird. I do it anyway, and it works for me. Let me know. Drop something here in the comments or chat in the Discord because all that type of stuff fascinates me. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.